All right, I'm Michelle Rehill, and I will call the meeting of the Library Board of Trustees to order now at 7:02 p.m. I will start by reading the governor's advisory regarding remote meetings. This open meeting of the Library Board of Trustees is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2022, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on March 29th, 2023. All members of the Library Board of Trustees are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The act allows the Library Board of Trustees to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. So I will now conduct the roll call attendance. See if anybody has surprised me by showing up. Please respond when I call your name. Brittany Burns.
Brittany Burns here.
Mitch Cohen.
Mitch Cohen here.
Pat Fonts.
Pat Fonts here.
Jim Hogan.
Jim Hogan here.
Jocelyn McHelm is not here. Right. Beth Samus.
Beth Samus here.
Richard Tucker.
Richard Tucker here.
I'm Michelle Rehill, am here. And we also have with us Library Director Jen Bruneau and Assistant Library Director Caitlin Stacy. Glad you could join us. So, with that part out of the way, we can move on to the approval of the minutes. Would anyone like to make a motion regarding that? Are there any questions or comments about it?
Make a motion, we approve the meeting minutes as presented.
All right, Mitch made the motion. Thank you. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Beth. So there were no corrections, comments, or anything. Otherwise, we'll go right to the vote for approving the minutes from the July 9th meeting. All those in favor. Brittany Burns.
Brittany Burns, aye.
Mitch Cohen.
Aye.
Pat Fonts.
Pat Fonts, aye.
Jim Hogan.
Jim Hogan, aye.
Beth Samus.
Aye.
Richard Tucker.
Richard Tucker, aye.
And Michelle Rehill also says aye. The motion carries in the affirmative unanimously. Alrighty, next up, the FY25 report, appropriations report. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Yes, Mitch?
What I suspect is a minor question. I know we're at 49% on the substitute salaries. And I know we discussed that a few months ago in regards to the FY24, which ended up, about 210%. Of budget, and I know it's not a big deal because everything evens out. My only thought is if we thought that this was always going to be higher, then maybe going into next fiscal year, an adjustment could be made to try to zero in on what we think it would be if we think it's a long-term issue. That's all. No concerns otherwise.
Now that we're fully staffed, it shouldn't be a long-term issue.
Okay.
Plus,
great.
We're fully staffed plus one. Because we do have that new position that we filled. So we shouldn't be relying on our substitutes as much. We did use them through the end of summer to get us through summer reading.
Okay.
But we should be good now. Hi,
Awesome.
Jocelyn.
Hey, Jocelyn. Can you unmute and say hey, please?
Hey.
Hey.
Thank you. Just want to make sure we're able to hear you moving forward.
Thank you.
All righty. So no questions about, and any other questions about the budget? I love the fact that the FY 24 was totally
Spent all
spent.
our money.
Yeah.
Good job.
And I got the year right. For the first meeting of the fiscal year. I think for the first time in my entire career, I got it right on the first try. I was very happy.
Yay.
Win.
Jen?
I have one question, and actually it's in the FY 24 appropriations report.
Sure.
And I just wanted, I'm kind of curious as to line number 5469, general funds for overages. Just, can you just enlighten me as to what that is?
I have never seen that before.
Oh, okay,
I will follow up with the next meeting.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, because it's not on the FY 25
Right,
and no money went away from that.
so,
So
you know,
maybe,
Yeah, I will check on that.
thank you.
righty then. I just assumed it's, like one of the technical glitches that's been going on with me in my little home all week.
No, I have a feeling it's an accounting line item for something somewhere. And I just can't. Yeah, it looks like there was no money spent from it, so
Right,
I will check on it.
okay, it was just kind of, it stood out for me, and I'm sorry I got to, I was talking about the wrong fiscal year at this point, but I saw that and I went, what's that?
No, it's a good question, and I missed it when I looked at it,
Okay.
so.
I'm making myself a note. Okie dokie. If we're done with finding strange things in the fiscal report, we can move on to the library director's report.
Anybody have any questions about it?
No, but I'm just was happy to read the line. We are fully staffed.
It feels nice.
Oh, and congratulations to the folks who got the with
All the
conference-
scholarships.
the scholarship. Thank you. To
Yeah,
go to the conference. That's pretty awesome.
I thought that was cool because it's not really, I mean, we have it in our budget to send everybody, but it's nice not to have to use state aid funds for that. And it's great that MLS, I think this is the first year that they've expanded that scholarship opportunity. I think it was a lot more limited last year, so it's really cool to be able to
Great, yeah.
send everybody. Yeah.
All right. No one has any other questions or comments about the report. We can move on to the new business portion, which is the library AV proposal and funding. And you have that in the report. And then we got this lovely multi-page blue and white document. Lots of words and numbers.
Lots of words and numbers.
Lots of words and numbers.
That's
a lot of stuff. Yeah. And I think it's clear, but I just wanted to point out that even though like these specs came from Ockers, the project would still go out on combis to be bid. So they're not necessarily the vendor. Although they've been working closely with us to try to put everything together. So yeah, just to kind of sum up what I wrote in the report, we do have $35,000 in ARPA funding towards this project, which comes in quoted at just under 95,000. There's a lot of benefits to this. It increased ADA accessible. Usability was one of our biggest concerns. Replacing all the equipment that, some of it works and some of it doesn't. It expands our ability to broadcast our programs live, which I think is something really cool. And I spoke to Dana earlier and he said, you know, I can teach you guys how to use this. It's not typically terribly hard. So I think that was something that was really kind of a fun opportunity for us to be able to consider what we could do with the live broadcast. So yeah, I don't, maybe just open it up to questions and comments right now.
Yeah, Jen, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
You talk about the 25,000 from the annual fund. Is that money in a budget item right now, or is that to be raised?
Say that again.
When you say, we're voting on whether we're going to authorize $25,000 from the annual fund. Does that
Yes.
mean, is that an annual fund budget that you have there, or, an account, or is it to be raised?
Yep, that's
in the next annual fund?
money that we have in the account from when we were doing annual appeals.
Oh,
So,
we already have the money?
Yep.
Okay. And one more question.
Oh,
How much does the annual fund pull in each year, approximately?
it has varied through the years. It depends on whether we send a mailing out to everybody in town or if we just do a targeted mailing. There was one year where we didn't do one. So anywhere from, I would say 20 to 60,000. And it is worth noting, it's not something that we've, that's necessarily relevant, but the Friends of the Library are gonna take on responsibility of sending out the appeal from now on. So they'll be doing a townwide mailing every year. So it takes, the staff time of doing that away from us. So that should be, I can't remember the exact balance, but there's a lot more than 25,000 in that account.
Amazing.
Actually, a quick question just related to the annual appeal.
Mhm.
When the Friends do that mailing, are they still soliciting funds for the same account, the Trustees account, or are they soliciting funds for the Friends?
It would start to go into a friend's account that
Okay.
is with a line item that it's from the appeal.
Okay. All right.
Rather
So
than-
we would not have the flexibility to spend from that. The Friends would have to allocate that, correct?
They would be the
Yeah.
approving body, yes.
Okay.
Although we've talked extensively about what those needs are and what we typically or traditionally have spent money on. So there's an understanding kind of going in that it would not change necessarily. Like, so if we needed money from that fund, or we requested money from that fund for a project, it would still be going to the library. So the only difference is that
Okay.
it's not me sending out the letter or Michelle sending out the letter.
Yep.
And they have the option to put it into the Greater Worcester Community Foundation Fund.
Which has, pros and cons. It would be nice to take advantage of that, but money put in there is not readily accessible.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I have some questions, concerns on this item, which are not going to be a surprise to Jen and Michelle because we've talked extensively about it, but I wanted to make sure other people had a chance to ask questions first. As it stands right now, I do not support this, which is heartbreaking for me to say. I like the concept of it. It's hard from the multi-page quote to understand the functions of this and how it would be used. This is something I don't blame Jen or Michelle or Dana or anyone for putting together in this way, but it's hard to know, like, all right, how does this break down for the different purposes of this? I have some professional experience with these things, having run a cable department in another town. And it looks like a little bit more than half of the $95,000 is for the benefit of really the cable department. It's, three 4K cameras that get mounted onto the walls. It's a fancy controller and switcher and broadcast equipment and things like that I don't know are core enough to the function of a library that it's worth spending a lot of library funds on. I am very much in favor of improved AV equipment in that room. I think that's something that we've long talked about. People who've been on this board prior to COVID remember some discussions about that, and looking at the equipment in the storage closet next to the meeting room and everything else to figure out what was working and what was there. And the somehow throughout the process over the last few years, it has shifted to being more of a cable project than a library project. The biggest deficiency right now is that it's only mono sound for video, which is to my extent not acceptable for a library. And so a lot of the discussions that I've had over the last couple of weeks with Jen and Michelle and Dana have focused on that. I did bring forward to the select board the request for $35,000 of ARPA funds, and that, in my mind, I'm very happy that was approved. And that was primarily to try to cover the costs of the Zoom meeting aspect of this, which wasn't in the original vision, prior to COVID, because no one thought about Zoom meetings to the extent that we think about them now. And we had some experience recently approving similar equipment for Zoom meetings at town hall. So there was that. But once I started to really look at the breakdown and ask some questions about this, I saw it was, well more than $35,000 before you even touched that. And I think it is not an appropriate use of library funds to spend, $60,000 when the bulk of that is not a dramatic benefit to library patrons or library staff. There's some benefit here and there, but I think we could do a lot better for a lot less for our functions. And if I am happy to go back to the select board and seek some additional funds to compensate. Roughly what we came up with was adding about $4,000 in products, and my guess is another $2,000 to $3,000 at most for labor. We could address the sound issues. So, what I did tell Jen and Michelle earlier is that I would support this if we did a scope reduction of $7,000 of the equipment as proposed and substitute that money for improved sound in that room. And then I would be happy to go back, if the cable department requested, to go back to the select board and seek $7,000 of additional cable funds to cover that end. To that extent, I'm comfortable supporting it. But that's kind of my piece. And we tried to work through this and couldn't before today. So that's where we are.
So
So I
Mitch,
think,
excuse me. So Mitch, what I'm hearing from you is you're unhappy with the sound capability as in the proposal. Am I correct?
I'm unhappy with both the sound capabilities and the request to spend so much of library funds on what I view as not really library function. Some extent, I'm okay with. We're one big town and it's one big pot of money, just split certain ways, and I don't mind at all putting some of those funds towards it. But I think a little bit of a rebalancing is appropriate in that regard, but to my extent, it does not meet a minimum threshold for an AV setup for the meeting room right now because of the sound. Ideally, I'd like some improvements on the video, but I'm not going to even go into detail on that.
When it comes to sound improvement, you're preaching to the choir because I'm very deaf. So any improvement in sound is great with me. But I just wanted, just kind of clarify it because I know, I don't know if other trustees I've looked over the proposal and I looked at it and it's like, I have no idea what this stuff is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do have some idea of what that stuff is, and it still took me a while
Right.
to really understand the big picture components of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Michelle, could I provide some context that might be helpful? Sorry, I didn't, Brittany, were you about to speak? Go ahead.
I have a follow-up question connected to this, but you can go first.
So the original proposal is, it does have NCAT's name on it. Dana did originally submit a request for ARPA funding for the full amount. What we did get was $35,000. So that's why this board is being asked to fund the rest of it, because Dana, it's not in NCAT's budget. When we worked on this proposal, we do believe that it does meet the library's our needs in terms of, so I have an email from Dana that says that Danielle's professional opinion is that what she's quoted for the room is more than adequate for the space. So there's a little bit of a difference of opinion on whether the audio would be sufficient. We did try to get surround sound added to it. It's a little bit more complicated than I would have thought. And most of this goes straight over my head. So I've learned a lot about speakers over the last couple weeks. But it meets the library's needs in terms of the hybrid tech, the better video. There's a 4K TV screen that we could use for programming, the better sound, the accessibility, and the biggest thing for us is the microphones and the speakers that feed with that, because right now we don't have anything and it's something that people are constantly requesting. We have had a lot of requests. Caitlin was telling me about some today from presenters to have that live streaming capability. We've had some informational workshops that were poorly attended because of the weather. And people have asked, is it possible to just record this and make it available for people who may have missed the live presentation? So there's a lot to be said for being able to do that, either live stream it or even just be able to record it for later. So we do believe that there's a shared sort of benefit to this, even though some of it might be for cable, which, if boards and committees are able to more sort of to meet in the library and have a better experience, then I don't know if any of you watched the budget meeting that we had jointly. That took several hours for cable access to set up. And it wasn't ideal. If you watched or if you attended the police chief swearing in ceremony, there was no sound, something like that. To have a better experience, I think there is a benefit to the library of being able to host things like that. So when we worked on this together, Dana and I we stand strongly that this is the proposal that meets our needs jointly. I'm not super in favor of a scope reduction, especially because it's not my proposal. So I guess, yeah, that's what
was Dana invited to join us this evening?
Yes, he couldn't.
Okay.
Couldn't make it.
Okay. I will respond to that in that the microphone aspect is desperately needed in that room and could be done for about $2,500. Recording and live streaming can be done for way less than it's about $55,000 of equipment to do that. That's can be done really, really well for a lot less. It's a cable studio is what's being built into the meeting room. And I support us live streaming things. I think that's great. I mean, we're live streaming this. You know, you can do a lot better than this for a lot less money and make it be something that people can actually use. I mean, I'm familiar with the equipment that'll be installed here. It requires some real training to use. It's professional grade equipment. It's, you know, used in cable studios. It's not typically used by members of the public or library staff on a regular basis.
Yeah, Dana said that he would be able to send us or, provide us with a booklet with pictures and step-by-step instructions and provide all the training, and seemed reasonably certain that we'd be able to pick it up. So we're used to doing
Okay.
our tech. I think we could do it.
Brittany, did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, Mitch, you're kind of speaking to some of the questions that I had when I first read through this proposal, because it occurs to me that the funding of this is actually, I mean, you're using $35,000 of a grant that was given to the library, plus an additional $25,000 of the library. So effectively, $60,000 of this project is funded by the library and nothing by NCAT. And when I was reading Dana's proposal, I was trying to like figure out reasonably what is the library really going to be using on a regular basis versus what is the cable department using. And so it sounds like maybe Mitch, you and I had some of the same just thoughts about this of like, are we really funding a Northborough cable access project that will benefit the library, but is maybe beyond the scope of what the library should be funding? And I just have some concerns and some questions about that, because I would hate to see us in a position where we need that money for something for the library and we've now, spent it on something that the library is not utilizing or that's being used by a different department exclusively and not this one. So kind of I don't know where that clarification could come from, but that's kind of what I'm questioning, I guess.
Okay. Jim?
Kind of swayed by what Mitch has been saying. And I'm thinking about the annual fund, which has done very well over the last several years. I've been quite surprised. But I think when people contribute to the annual fund, they're thinking of more traditional library services when they send in their checks. Children's services and teen services and adult, materials and programs. And I'm wondering if people start looking at these kinds of expenditures. And again, I'm swayed by Mitch's point that it seems to be more of a cable TV program than a mission-driven library type of program. I'm wondering if people might start thinking about whether they should actually contribute to the annual fund or not. Because I do think a lot of people, when they contribute, they are thinking of more traditional library programs, services, and products.
I'll give you my take on this one. One is that there has been a push for having these remote meetings, hybrid meetings, having things more accessible. And I think that this really does, it accomplishes what the library wants for the library's programming. And I think Mitch and I have a difference of opinion about how we think this is going to sound. I would hate to start cherry picking things out of this and trying to substitute things when Dana and sorry, I forgot Danielle from Oakers have really done, I think, taken a thoughtful process to look at the whole thing and to make what's in the library consistent with what's in other municipal buildings. So it will be, our room is bigger than, say, the select board meeting room, so it needs some equipment that's a little bit more expensive. But I feel that everything should be consistent. It should be consistent across municipal buildings. It should work the same way. I don't have a problem with down the road if there really is an issue with the sound, that maybe we don't, maybe we can go back and say, okay, we can add this thing, something else in parallel. But the sound will be better with this proposal than what we have currently, which is not much of anything. And my concern is also that if we don't move forward with this, yes, we got 35,000 of the ARPA funds. If we don't do this and move forward with this now, that $35,000 will go away. It's not going to come back and help us if we end up needing to do this down the line. And again, I think that if we can offer this as a service to other departments, a bigger room that's better for meetings, or where they have to have joint meetings between committees, this will help get everything, make it easier for everybody all the way around to go through. It's like, okay, we don't have to worry about moving equipment there. We don't have to worry about, is it going to work? How's the technology going to go? And we can use this equipment for what the library was originally looking to do in the first place. So my feeling is that if we don't do it now, then we risk losing even like the basic funds that we have. The ARPA money will, if it's not committed, it will go away. It will get assigned to some other project. It will be spent differently. And I'm just concerned about, or it's almost like I want to be on the team. I want us to be saying to the rest of the departments in town, yep, we're here for you. We can do this for you. But also support some of the, things, and especially that Caitlin mentioned that she's had requests from people who want to be able to live stream something from in there. And if we really want it to be a quality product, if we want to make people want to come here for it, or to sign up for programs that they can't go to the library, but they really want to see a program, participate in it, this is the way that they can do it, and do it in a quality way. I know that there are other ways to do it, but I think that we need to be consistent across the town in the way we do this work. And Mitch, as much as I appreciate you coming in with your phone and putting it on a tripod and sticking it in the corner and recording our meetings in person.
Yeah.
I'd rather have real professional equipment there doing it for us and making sure.
I don't think we would use this equipment for trustees meetings unless there was staff from the cable office there to do it. What we would use, so Jen made mention of a TV. It's a 75-inch TV, pretty large TV on a cart. That's the same equipment that is in the select board room and the second floor meeting room at town hall. And there's a camera. It's kind of like conceptually a meeting owl, if anyone has ever used those. It's a different brand product. That is designed to, for remote meetings on a pretty big TV. You put that in front of a conference table, and it's a wide angle camera. It'll pick up a bunch of people. It'll go out over Zoom. That's what I anticipate we would use. And that was my visualization of what I would want to fund with the ARPA money. I mean, it's probably $10,000 of $35,000, for that. And that's a really good product. But I don't think we would have to use 4K cameras with the joystick controller and switcher and everything else for a trustees meeting. And I will add that the senior center has some of this equipment. I don't think it's ever been used. They have two 4K cameras in the ceiling that have been installed, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years ago. And I am not sure. And it's a larger room than our meeting room.
I think part of it is they're not open at night, right?
For something like the budget meeting, easily could have made that happen. I mean, obviously, there was senior center staff there at the meeting. They could have kept an eye on things if need be.
So I think that's another question I had is what is the feasibility of using this equipment without NCAT staff there? I know that's something we run into sometimes at the high school. That it's too technologically advanced to use a lot of that equipment. So that is a question I have. And also if we know what the balance is of the annual fund currently.
Oh, I should have brought that with me. No, I know that 262,000 was roughly the amount of money that is in the annual fund, grant funds, and state aid combined. So there's also an opportunity if the annual fund is not the one that we're comfortable with, there's a healthy budget in the state aid fund. So if it's, there's an opportunity there. If like I hear Jim's point about the annual fund, if this is not the project for that, that's fine. And Dana, his message to me was, yep, I could absolutely train you and provide you with an instruction booklet with photos.
I have used this equipment. I do not think that most people would be able to use it properly. I really don't. Yeah.
I feel pretty confident that I could use it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's from personal use.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I have kind of a long-term question. Do we have a sense of, I know cable is the standard for a long, long time, but there's also lots of other mechanisms people are using to tune into things presently. Do we, I'd hate to spend all this money on tech and then within a couple of years, like nobody's even, using cable access or, like these kind of, I just don't know if there's even a sense of how people are accessing these meetings most typically when they're offered in multiple on multiple platforms.
I can answer some of that to some extent. My experiences before moving to Northborough, I ran a cable department in another town as part of the things that I did there. And people have obviously shifted a lot more towards streaming, and that is severely impacting the budget of cable. So if you have cable TV from either Verizon or Charter, Spectrum, there's a line item on your bill of a couple dollars a month that you pay that funds the cable operations. As more and more people cancel their cable TV and get their TV from streaming, that's less and less money every year. And I anticipate probably within the next year or two to continue to fund the town's cable operations. And this obviously goes outside of talking about library trustees, but I think it's pertinent, is that that funding will have to continue that department. There will need to be tax appropriation. So right now, property taxes don't pay towards the cable office. So that's one aspect. And that really puts that department and that staff at risk, which scares the dickens out of me because I think it's critical for the town and the communication ability of the town and the ability for people to watch its government and everything else. My strong suspicion is more people watch cable produced programming, whether it be government programs like this or sports events or school plays or anything else. Many more people watch it on streaming, watch it on YouTube, than watch it on actual cable television. So I think that's what it has moved towards that and will continue to do so.
So I'm hearing a compelling argument for our cooperation with the Northborough cable people to keep them, having them going belly up or having to do additional appropriations to keep them afloat. Correct.
Which is that's an operating budget question, not a capital question.
Okay. Just a couple of things I've been writing notes while we've been having this discussion. First of all, I think that I totally agree with Jen in terms of offering services, broadening the services and broadening the outreach to the community. It's been a long, hard few years for all of us. And I think the libraries, everybody kind of hunkered down because we were in survival mode for quite a while. But I think now we're starting to see some sunlight, the light at the end of the tunnel, if you want to call it that. And I think it can't possibly hurt the town library to expand their outreach to as many different departments, groupings in the town to expand the library services, even if they're not traditional services. I mean, at one time, the Library of Things would not have been a traditional service, but it's wildly popular. Also, I said cooperation with town departments would be one of them. And one other question, Jen. We got one proposal from Ockers, right?
Mhm.
Okay, that's going to have to go out to bid, am I correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there's a real possibility that someone might, be able to offer essentially the same thing for less. And I think that's something we should keep in mind as we're going through this. It's a pretty high figure right now, but we might be able to get that down to something reasonable. And my last thought is, with any luck at all, if we get this in place, we're gonna be running a lot of policies. Yeah, like, who's going to use it? But that's for the future. But it's something to consider because that's going to be a lot of work too.
Absolutely.
I'm done.
We have some hands up. We haven't used the hand raise feature in a while.
I don't do hands.
I'm reverting to work, Jocelyn. This is how we do things orderly.
Oh,
in the
yeah.
office.
Oops.
And it works well. And I see Beth is queued up behind me. So I have a lot of thoughts and comments. And without taking us down too many rabbit holes, I have something of a rhetorical question where it feels like, and I apologize, I missed the previous meeting. It feels like we are, as a library, looking to take advantage of a proposal that was started by another department. And my rhetorical question is, what would the bid look like if the library had initiated an RFP process for the specific needs of the library, which then could be shared with other departments? Without, again, similar to others that have said on this call, I was cross-eyed by the third line on this proposal. This far exceeds my technological capability to read what's in there. But without even having that understanding, knowing the origins of this project, and again, Pat, to your point, this is going to go out for RFP. Is there a place where we're looking for folks to compete on this list that was created by another company? Or is it going to be a request for proposals that is initiated by the library based on the needs of the library?
Good question.
I can give you somewhat of an answer to your somewhat rhetorical question. So one of the early conversations that Dana and I had was Dana came and said, I'm looking for more places to put this equipment so that we can have better meeting space in town. It's a critical need. So we talked about what the library needs as well. Part of the reason that so much of this was initiated by Dana is because I'm cross-eyed by like the first line. It's super hard for me to lead a project of which I'm not an expert. And AV technology, other than, does it have what I need? Does it meet my needs? Here's what I want it to do. I could absolutely, we could put something together and send it out, but that was the origins of this sort of cooperative project. I do feel like the entire time, all the way through, Dana has been very responsive to making sure that what the library needs is included in there. And every time, when he met with Ockers, which we chose just to kind of because you need some kind of estimate and some kind of package to be able to bid the project. I was in the room, I answered questions about what the library needs, so we weren't railroaded is probably not the right word, but our needs were heard and communicated and I believe met. And then some, right, with whatever cable needs. So Beth's had her hand up for a long time. I'm gonna stop talking.
Beth, can I ask a follow-up? I'm sorry. Thank you. Again, this is gonna push this further. I understand that there is the possibility we could lose the access to the ARPA funds, and I still bigger picture think it's more important to get it right than to get it fast. And the follow-up is, I'm sure Dana does a remarkable job and is, I've never met Dana, so super friendly. Is there the potential to get a Switzerland in this conversation where it's not somebody with the library's needs first, not somebody with cable TV's needs first, but somebody who understands AV technology and has nothing to do with any of these departments and could just bring a completely disinterested third, fourth, or fifth party view to the table to maybe wade through, you know, yes, this is something cable needs, this is something library needs, but really you don't need whatever all the abbreviations are, the 4K, the UHD, the OLED, is there a middle ground that satisfies our needs and cable's needs without being something that needs, you know, a toolkit for somebody who is not an NCAT employee to be able to operate? I yield the rest of my time.
I don't have an
Thank you.
answer to your question, but I will consider it.
I think it was really more for the entire board to say, is there a pot? It sounds to me, if I were to make a decision for any other organization I'm involved in, it seems like there is an opportunity to bring in somebody who is not connected to either of our two entities and someone who has that high level skill in this area.
So like a paid consultant.
I'm certain there are folks out there who are able to do this that would not be expensive.
The particular I'm sorry to interrupt. The particular vendor that was brought in is a vendor that cable departments use. This is their expertise. There are companies that have expertise in other things. I don't know if there are probably people that understand both a little bit better. You know, the conversation that I had with Danielle this morning, there was not a lot of understanding of AV sound in that, and she admitted to that they don't do that, and they came up with one idea that was really, really, really expensive to be able to do it. Michelle, would you like me to try to address the ARPA question, just because I'm uniquely suited to do that, and I can do that independently of the rest of the conversation? If not, I won't.
I guess, or maybe I wonder, does that impact what Beth's question? I don't know. So
okay, just very briefly, the rules of ARPA are that the select board in each town needs to appropriate all of the money, and it needs to be under contract by the end of this coming December. So we have 3.5 months to sort this out and have a contract in place, and that would include the bidding time of, you know, a couple of weeks. So there is time. Speaking as a select board member, I don't want to send any of this money back to the federal government, which is what happens with any money that isn't under contract. So I would say that, you know, by our first meeting in December, I think it would be reasonable to say, you know, if there wasn't a contract pending, I would say it would be reasonable at that point. The money could be used for something else between now and then. I think there's essentially no chance of that, because we have many other projects. We still have about $700,000 to allocate of ARPA. We have many other projects that are pending. There are going to be a lot of these that are going to go into the December timeframe.
didn't make me feel better. Beth, what was your question?
Well, Well, I actually had the same question as Jocelyn, so I'm glad you articulated it much better than I was going to. So I'm glad you're the one who asked what the plan would have looked like if it had been born from the library. But my other, I'm going to be that more of a comment than a question person in the room. It feels like we're having almost two conversations in tandem. I'm getting, a lot of support for the general idea of the library needs this something, right? I think we're majority in favor of access and streaming and all of these things. The question is if this is the proposal that we are in support of, right? Just kind of for my clarification, because I don't personally, I don't need any more convincing that this is something we need. It's that, is this the direction to do that, to achieve that in a way that makes sense now, in the future, for the library, and also being a team player in the town? And that's where I'm getting a little stuck, is I wish we had something else to compare it to, or something, to have a sense of what another proposal that was a little more library focused would look like.
I think you framed that really well. I think kind of what we're looking at is, so this is the proposal that we have based on a partnership with cable. And we could choose to support it tonight, or we could choose maybe to say this is not enough of a library project to justify allocating $60,000 towards, which, to be very clear, totally fine either way. This is, it's why we bring things to the board. It's why we, I present all this information. We could vote this down tonight. And I could go back and figure out a new way to start over. Capacity wise, I don't know if I would be able to make something happen by December because of the other projects that we're working on. But that's not to say that there's not other opportunities for funding. So there's by no means, if you vote it down, it's okay. Would make me a small sad.
Could we,
'cause I do
instead
like
of
the project, but
instead of formally voting it down, ask you to coordinate just seeking another, not another proposal from a price standpoint, but another proposal from a design standpoint.
so I don't know how to do that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Can I, yes,
I mean,
can I jump in? May I please jump in on this one? Because I was waiting for sort of a pause to say this. And I'm sorry, I should have found my little raise my hand button, but I didn't. One of the reasons that we got involved, well, we got cable involved on this project, was because there was this expressed need for trying to make more places accessible for like the recording of meetings and so forth. And Jen was honest enough to say, look, I don't really know enough about this. I don't understand this. And nor should we expect Jen or anybody else on staff to be fully knowledgeable about what goes on in depth. And the decision was made to work with NCAT to get somebody who knows about all of this technology, to have that person help us frame it and find the person, like, so somebody who knows how to do this, somebody who has done this before. It was like using, somebody said something, oh, could we have a consultant come in? It was like using our town's own consultant. It's the town's expert came in and said, oh yeah, I know what you need, and this is what we're doing here, and the request has been made to, try and increase the stability across town. So I would be happy to do that. So Dana took on for, and yes, it benefits NCAT, but it was always, it started with us. We brought it up. We went and we asked the library, asked for his help. So, and then Jen just made that comment. She said, yeah, I could do it, but I don't know how. And again, how much bandwidth do you have to deal with that? Like, how much time? What else is on our plate right now? which was get the person who knows it to do that for us. So, like I said, I think, if you really want to take Jen away from other stuff, then as a board, we could say, yeah, Jen, go and find out how to do this somewhere else. But I think I ran out of my line there. I just think that we're saying this is for NCAT, from NCAT, by NCAT, and that isn't the way. I just wanted to get like that history part in there. It's like we went and asked for the help. They didn't come in and say, we're gonna do this for you. And
Right.
and we're gonna give you what we want, not what you want. So
Jen, by any chance, do you think they might be a consultant through MBLC?
Offhand, I don't think there's a consultant that specifically deals with AV. However,
I mean, there might be
would
someone
not-
there who might be able to point the way.
I could check into that.
I figured,
One of the benefits to working with Dana, or one of the things that has been really nice, is Dana used to work at the Shrewsbury Library. As I can't remember his exact title, but it was something in their reference department. So sometimes when you're dealing with a consultant, you have to explain libraries to them. And it's been really nice working with Dana because I didn't have to explain like what I meant by easy to use and things like that. So, and I did give extensive input to Danielle and have had conversations with Dana. So, again, to Michelle's point, like framing it as an NCAT project maybe is just a failing on my part to express exactly how much of this technology is beneficial to us. But I have been a good partner with Dana the whole time, and I don't think he's trying to exclude me or railroad us and prioritize his stuff. He's really made a point to try to work on something that would work for both departments. So yes, Brittany has her hand up.
I'm just thinking, as opposed to starting over and bringing in new consultants, all of these things, like we have a proposal here. I think where I'm struggling is just really understanding the necessity of the things that are being proposed. I don't know if this would be possible, but could we delay a vote till next month and have Dana join us and go through and explain, like I'm reading his report and it's like, there's lots of uses in the library. And I'm like, but what are they? Right. And I think none of us really have those answers. And I think for me, if I could hear from him and he could say, here are 3 concrete examples of how this benefits the library and not just Northborough Cable, I would feel much more comfortable and confident in making a decision about using library funds. That I just don't feel like we have that concrete information now. I mean, I think maybe that's like the most simple next step, as opposed to starting from scratch or asking you to find new consultants or all of that, because it may be that, he can explain to us and answer many of these questions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how anyone else feels, but that would be my personal preference at this point.
I think that's
So, yes.
reasonable. Yeah. And perhaps that extra month would give us an opportunity, of seeing if we could identify, address the sound concerns, the audio concerns that I have with the current proposal.
Yep. Timeline wise, I know that it needs to get out to bid and contract stuff. Could I ask to set up a special meeting so we're not waiting a whole entire month and losing 4 weeks of timeline for potentially getting something done? In terms of how the system would be used, I could probably answer some of those, like here's some concrete, if you want concrete examples of what we would be doing with it. The microphones are the biggest thing. We have no microphones right now. So we have staff that are still wearing masks when they're giving, when they're conducting story times and other programs. They've asked for microphones so that they're more clearly heard. There's accessibility equipment built into this, which we don't have right now. So it would be yeah, a lot more accessible for people. The sound is better, right? We currently, when we're, if we want something with sound, it's computer speakers or like a little portable speaker. So to be able to actually have speakers from the ceiling, would increase the ability of people to hear our presenters. And then
I
of
don't think
course,
these are ceiling speakers. These are
or
wall
whatever
mounted.
they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Wherever they're mounted, wall mounted.
Could we
Something,
maybe
yeah.
have Dana come in and walk us through this? And it might be help from my perspective. I think it would be helpful to divide the project budget into components and say, okay, the PA system is about this amount. Here happens to be the details of the PA, the microphone and audio. Here is the video piece, and here is the cable piece. And I think that would be helpful rather than expect all of us to understand this multi-page, very detailed quote of items that really none of us ever regularly use.
Yes.
I'm
Jim?
not so concerned about the bottom line as I am about how this proposal is connected to the core mission of the library. And I have no issue with the sound. I've been to many meetings in the library, and the sound is terrible to non-existent. And we do need to bring that up to speed. But many of the other things are just beyond my ability to comprehend. And what I would like is to have something from Jen, and maybe Jen and Dana, that would more explicitly describe and explain how this equipment would further the library mission. Now, having said that, I fully support one of the library missions as being in support and working in tandem with other town departments. I think that's great, and I think we should be doing that. But I'm just a little unsure about this vote because there's just, I tried to read the proposal, but I really just don't understand enough to be taking a vote tonight. So I think Brittany's idea is a good idea, and I like that. I think it was Brittany. I think you made the idea. And I would be in favor of having a special meeting. I could do that. I could do that to speed things up somewhere halfway between now and our October meeting. Because I think there's probably a lot of stuff in here that we actually really do need. But I just need to understand it a little better.
Yeah, I can reach out to Dana and then send out some kind of meeting poll and get everybody together so that, because he'll do a better job of explaining the tech side of it.
All right. So at this point, we are thinking, yes, we need to do something about equipment in the room, but we are not comfortable with our own understanding of this. It is a very complex proposal and process. So we're going to ask Dana to come in and sort of walk us through that. And hopefully it can be a special meeting that is held before the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Would it be helpful to have this one in the meeting room?
Yeah, good idea.
It's a good idea.
easier to live in the map.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Okay, Joey.
Thank you for getting that reference.
And just to clarify, if we had the special meeting with Dana, we'd then be voting at our next regular meeting? Or would we be voting at the special meeting?
I think you could vote at the special meeting. But
I still think it
If we're
is.
uncomfortable with it, you could wait.
I still think it is appropriate to have somebody look at this from another perspective. There are AV consultants, and I think there's even one in Northborough that might be willing to help out. I can do some of this, but at the same time, I've also sort of leaked my bias regarding this proposal, so I suggest that I not lead it for that
You
reason.
leaked it. You didn't leak it, you just tossed it right out there.
You know the name of somebody that you could recommend that I reach out to?
I don't know the name. I know the company name, but I don't want to say it on camera.
No, that's fine. No.
Yeah. I can email you
If
a
it's
little
something
bit
you
later.
can email or text me.
Yeah. Okay.
And I will take I think it was Pat's suggestion to reach out to the MBLC to see if they know of somebody that could take a look at it. It's worth a shot, right?
I'm
especially
comfortable with that idea. However, I also think, the more I think about it, I really want to see Jen and her staff come back to us and tell us, without getting into technical details, tell us how this is going to further the library mission. I'm sure it will, but I think it just needs to be explained a little more carefully and a little more explicitly to us. And I think they're capable of doing that. I think they know what they need to do, and I think they know what they don't have in order to do what they need to do.
Mhm.
But that just hasn't come through to us as clearly as it should at this point. So I'm fine with listening to an outside AV guy or gal, but that could be just more technical stuff. I'm more interested in just hearing what the staff think they need in order to fulfill their core missions as librarians for the town.
Absolutely. Can I just say thank you to all of you for your input and questions and gentle pushback, and not just like either blindly voting for something that you don't understand or I do appreciate the feedback. I think in the end, what we're going to end up with is the best system for everything and the best possible decisions. So I really, really appreciate this group.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
All right. So do we, you think we have what we're gonna do? Look for a non-cable access consultant, if possible. Schedule a meeting with Dana where he can tell us what's what, maybe in terms that we can all handle. And then there was a request to get something from the staff for how this will help help them provide the services to provide the library. Is that it?
I think so.
Okie dokie. Is there any other questions or comments at this time? Because
Is Is there an action that needs, since this was intended to come to the board for a vote tonight, do we need to take an action that we are intentionally delaying action on this item?
No,
Okay,
the agenda is worded that we would discuss the AV proposal and funding.
I hedged
And
it.
we have discussed the AV proposal and funding.
okay.
So it doesn't require a vote. When we decide to commit funds to it, then we will have a vote. So we're safe for tonight. Any other issues, questions, concerns at this time? Any other business that may come before the board at this time? If not, the date of the next meeting is, the next regularly scheduled meeting is October 8th at 7 p.m. And I think that we said it was going to be an in-person meeting. And for personal reasons, I'm going to ask if it can be a remote meeting. And so if that's okay with everyone, the October 8th meeting will be remote. All righty. Make sure I make a note of that. And that being the case, I would be willing to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Mitch moved. Was that Jocelyn?
Jocelyn seconded, yeah.
You? Do all those in favor, Brittany,
Brittany Burns, aye.
Mitch,
Mitch Cohen, aye.
Pat,
Pat Ponce, aye.
Jim,
Jim Hogan, aye.
Jocelyn,
Jocelyn McKelney, aye.
Beth Thomas,
aye.
Richard,
Richard Tucker, aye.
and I, Michelle Rehel, also vote to adjourn the meeting at 8:14 p.m. And good night, Kate.